welcome to another episode of the Preparedness Podcast, a podcast that brings you the best in preparedness information. You can find us online at thepreparednesspodcast.com. My name is Rob Hannes, and I'm the host for the show. You can email me if you'd like at rob@prepcast.info. And speaking of email, I'd like to just say thank you to everyone who has been emailing me or contacting me through the website. Getting a lot of great comments. I appreciate them. I appreciate the feedback. Lets me know how much you enjoy the podcast, how much you're getting out of the podcast, and in some cases, you're letting me know what advertisers you're patronizing and stuff. And I appreciate that. I appreciate all of that because that kind of helps me, know that I'm reaching people and actually making a difference in your life and helping getting prepared and getting information out there. And to me, that's a big part of why I do this. This is going to be another casual podcast. It wasn't my intention to, but we are in the midst of the holiday season. It is actually it's a week before Christmas. I have family that's coming in for 2 weeks for this holiday season. Looking forward to that. But of course, there's just tons of stuff that needs to be done. And so we've been working on that. And I really have not had the time that I need to put together and, craft the show notes and pick out a topic and do everything that I need to do in order to put out the podcast like I have been. So I figured, well, you know what? We're just going to do another casual one. I found a topic I want to talk about. I don't know how long it's going to be. Of course, every time I say that, it tends or seems to go longer than I thought. So we'll see. We are going to be talking about Doomsday 2012, primarily the hoaxes and rumors that have been going around. This is the end of the year, and this isn't going to be a podcast of "Ha, told you so," because quite honestly, I didn't really tell you so. I think I mentioned that you should not be paying attention to these, but quite honestly, I haven't really been putting any effort or any attention to them because to me they're not where we should be focusing. But I thought I'd take the time for this podcast to kind of go over it because I think it's important to do a review at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year, just to kind of look back on what you've done and not to chastise yourself, but to say, okay, here's what I did well. Here's where I failed. Here's where I can do better. This is how I can do better. This is what I would have preferred to have done instead. And I think it's important. I think a steady cycle of self-assessment is very healthy because I think without it, you can lose your path because one way to see where you're going is to know where you've been. And you can't do that without looking back on your trail. I also want to make the notice that this may be the last podcast for the year. With all the festivities that are be going on for the next week, not only is some of my family coming in town, but we also have my wife's family that lives here, and we're doing stuff with them. And quite honestly, I don't want to try to get out a podcast and have it be less quality than what I really want. I don't want to just throw one out there. So I thought I'd just make the announcement so that you know what's going on. You don't have to worry that suddenly the podcast stopped again. This is more of a planned sort of thing. I also want to remind you to, when you get a chance, sitting down this holiday season or tonight or tomorrow, whenever you're listening, head on over to the website, thepreparednesspodcast.com. One of the new big things on the site is that I am trying to put out Monday through Friday a daily post for a Prepper News Watch. And I do anticipate to keep that going through the holiday seasons because I am pretty much going through all these news channels and these websites anyways, and pulling out these stories that I think are relevant to preppers or at least of general interest. I shouldn't have an issue doing that, but trying to do that every day. And basically, I'm trying to help spread information that you might find relevant in your preparation. Again, one of the things that we need to stay on top of is information and what's going on in the world so that we can be better informed to make better decisions should we need to find ourselves taking action in a crisis or a disaster event. And so if you go to the website and look for Prepper News Watch, you'll see a bunch of posts, and I've got them structured into 4 general areas: news, economy, natural and technological, and a general interest, which is kind of a potpourri sort of catch-all. So when you get a chance, go ahead and check those out. Also, while you're there, I would like to remind you that the advertisers that we have on the website and this podcast are advertisers that I believe in. They either have a product that I currently use, a product that is on my to-buy list because I've already scoped it out and did the research, and that is something that I want to add to my preps. They are someone or a company that I've done business before, or they're a friend of mine. They're somebody I feel is a reputable business person and sells a good product. So these aren't just wayward companies that wave money in front of my face, and I say, okay, go ahead and get on the site. These are actually products and businesses that I believe in, and I would like to invite you to look at them. So if any of them fill or have a product or a service that fill a void that you're looking for in your preps, please consider them. Go to the site, click on the banners, and go through and check out what they have. A lot of them are running specials right now, and that includes the sponsors for the podcast. We've got Flying Eagle Gold. If you are looking for some gold or silver, or actually Jeff and I were talking not that long ago about the potential new precious metal, or actually maybe you call it a semi-precious metal, of copper. Copper is an industrial metal, and because of its use in industry, it has value, and it is constantly being used and consumed, and so therefore there's a value to it, and the price of copper is a lot like silver, where it's been ticking up a little bit, and it's quite easy to acquire because it's relatively cheap. So maybe head on over to flyingeaglegold.com or give Jeff a call and discuss, the potential of owning some copper coins. They're actually quite pretty when they get polished up. They're very beautiful. So that might be something you want to consider. Also, we've got seedsnow.com. It is December. Next month, I think for most of the country, you need to start thinking about your garden for spring. A lot of times you're going to need to start your seedlings indoors and before you move them out to the garden, and you want to start now. Well, if you grow your own food and you grow, non-GMO heirloom seeds, these are the seeds that you can plant and replant every year. You plant it, the food grows, you harvest the seeds, and you can take those seeds and use them again next year. This is a highly critical skill for preppers. It's something I keep trying down here. I'm not having good luck because of the Arizona soil and my lack of attention to it, because I don't have the time to be out there every day and tending it. That's something I'm trying to overcome. But if you live in an area that gets good rain, it has good soil, the Midwest, actually most of the country besides the Southwest out here, you should be trying to grow some food. And seedsnow.com has a huge assortment of seeds. Anything that you can think of that you'd want to grow, and they even have a section there for people who are just starting out, or if you have some shade, some sun, or if you have a wetter climate, you can find the seeds that you can start growing and grow your own food at seedsnow.com. And lastly, I want to remind you about buyemergencyfoods.com. These are the folks that are making the ready-to-eat foods, where they are basically pre-made, freeze-dried and dehydrated ingredients put together in a long-term package, shelf life of 25 years. We've had a good number of the meals here. I've talked about a bunch of them. You've heard my kids talk about them. I like them. I like them a lot. There's a lot of advantages to having this type of food. Is it the only type of food storage? No, of course not. There is no one single solution for nearly anything, and food storage is no different. But, when you look at the fact that you don't have to spend a lot of time preparing this, when you look at the fact that I would call these like flood proof, you could have this package, these individual packages in flood waters, take them out, run them through a bleach solution to totally sterilize the outside and the food inside is still good to eat. I think that's huge. Flood is a major disaster that we deal with every year in this country. I think another huge aspect is that it's got a 25-year shelf life. You've heard me say this before. Buy once, cry once. What that means is you need to buy quality gear, equipment, and supplies. It's going to hurt because it's going to cost more, but you're going to buy it once, you're going to cry that one time, and then down the road, you're going to pat yourself on the back for making a good decision for buying quality equipment, no matter what it is. Whether it's binoculars, flashlights, speakers, GPS units, smartphones, inverters, solar panels, food storage, food items, whatever it is. You want good quality equipment, good quality supplies. And the fact that you can buy this food and know it's going to be good for 25 years to me is huge, because I hate buying food that I have to, or actually anything, including medical supplies, prescription drugs, whatever. I do not like having to buy it and then have to rebuy it in a very short period of time. And to me, 25 years is an excellent shelf life. And so I think it's a no-brainer for this. So go ahead and check out buyemergencyfoods.com. And if you could, I would appreciate it if you go to check out these places. All these sponsors have banners on the website. And if you could go to my website, thepreparednesspodcast.com, and click through these banners, that kind of lets them know that, I'm sending traffic their way, and that helps them keep them happy, and I would appreciate that. I just bought my wife just bought some batteries from Costco on her run today, and she stuck them here on my desk, and I'm looking at them, and they're Duracells because these are 9 volts that are going to be replaced in all the smoke detectors probably next month. Anyways, I was looking at it, and they make a very clear on the front of this blister pack here that they have they're guaranteed for 5 years in storage, which I think is interesting, because in order to guarantee something like that, they have to be good far beyond that if something is being guaranteed. And we know from several discussions and some of the stuff I put out on the Prepper News Watch, if you haven't seen it, there's been a couple articles about SLEP, the Shelf Life Extension Program, but we know that most things don't expire quickly, even if they have an expiration date. And you should know that just because something is marked expires on, let's say, December 21st, 2012, it does not mean that on December 22nd, that food is no longer good. That is a date that they're going to pick that is far within the actual true degradation or deterioration of that food to a point where it's no longer palatable. Likewise, with batteries, guaranteed 5 years in storage, that means there's probably 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10 years of storage life in these batteries where they're still going to be pretty good, because they know that some of these people are going to store them in high heat, or they may be in a warehouse where it's not air conditioned and stuff. And so in order to guarantee that, so they have less profit loss from refunds and stuff like that, that's how they're built. So I think that's cool. You could probably, what does this mean? Why am I telling you this? Well, you need to have spare batteries in your packs, your bug up bag, your fast packs, your get home bags, your evacuation bags. You need to have spare batteries. I've been suggesting that you have lithium batteries because they are 10, 15 plus years in storage, really good shelf life with the lithium batteries, but they're very expensive. So instead of using lithium batteries, you could get these Duracells with the guaranteed 5-year storage life, put them in your packs, and, set it up for, say, 4 years, every 4 years, or even every 3 years. Rotate those batteries out with a fresh set. 3 years is a pretty decent amount of time. Even if you just went 5 years, like I said, you could probably easily get 5 years out of these batteries in storage. Cycle them out every 5 years. That way you're not completely wasting the money. Use the batteries for flashlights around the home, or radios, or MP3 players, or whatever you have around here. You can use those batteries up. But know that you're going to have a good battery in your packs ready to go in those 5 years. And I think that's important. Actually, you know what? I just paused and did some research online because they're touting this Duralock technology. And so I looked it up on the Duracell site. I'll have a link in the show notes. I'm guessing, for what I see here, is that the 9 volts have a guaranteed shelf life of 5 years, but there are other batteries, and they're showing primarily the AA's and the AAA's. They say they're guaranteed for storage up to 10 years, or as they specifically say, now guaranteed for up to 10 years in storage. And this is due to the way they're using technology. They call it Duralock. You can go read more about it online, but again, this is amazing that you can now take standard alkaline batteries, and yes, Duracells do cost more than your other AA batteries, but if as a prepper, you're looking for batteries that you can throw in your pack, throw on the shelf, and again, make that buy once, cry once investment, but know that that is a high-quality investment, that you're going to get your money's worth, and you're not going to have to replace things every 6 months to 12 months. I think that's huge. So check out the show notes. There will be a link to this in them. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that M&M has a new flavor, and I'm only mentioning it because they're super yummy. They're almost too yummy, but it's the white chocolate peppermint. You can search online, or I've got a link that goes to Amazon, and they're far too expensive through Amazon. I'm sure your grocer has them for much less, but you can see the packaging on there, and white chocolate peppermint. Yeah, I would check them out. Perfect for the holidays. Did I mention they were yummy? Anyways, what I really want to talk on this podcast is a Doomsday 2012 fact sheet. This was emailed to me by a friend of mine. It was put out by a man named David Morrison, who is the director for the Carl Sagan Center for Study of Life in the Universe, a NASA senior scientist. And I think this is highly interesting of putting out. Now, I don't know when this came out. I wish this had came out sooner, or at least I wish I would have been exposed to it sooner. I would have liked to have talked about this in a manner of, hey, don't waste your time prepping for the unbelievable or the highly improbable. Focus your preps on those things that we've talked about over this past 6 months since I've relaunched the podcast. And those are the everyday emergencies. Not that you shouldn't be preparing for other disasters, but I feel that you should, as you know, start with the everyday disasters. Make sure you have life insurance, car insurance, health insurance, flood insurance, fire insurance. Make sure you have a fire plan. Make sure your kids know how to dial 911. Make sure your kids know how to get out of the house in case of a fire. Make sure your kids have a danger word, so if you're someplace or they're someplace and call you or come to you and they're uncomfortable, they can use a danger word that doesn't necessarily tell everybody that they're uncomfortable, but you know that they are and can deal with it. You need to know, or the kids need to know, where to go if there is a dangerous situation like a house invasion. You need to teach these things. You need to go over these things. Unfortunately, these are the things that you're most likely to get hit by than, say, green alligator men and silver unitards. And again, I'm not saying that you should not be prepared for the more unlikely events: hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, pandemic flu, nuclear war, terrorist events. I mean, those things happen. Those things do happen. The odds of it happening to any specific area are not as great as the everyday emergencies, but you should still be prepared. You need to prepare for the most likely things and then keep moving up on those items on your list. And eventually you'll be covered for just about everything. Okay, so if you're not familiar with this, 2012 or 2012, depending on how you want to say it, was supposed to be the target year for a good number of doomsday scenarios. And I think, I don't know, but I'm going to guess that most of this started with the Mayan calendar. That sort of rumor that because the calendar ends, the world is going to end. They knew something. Well, as I think I've mentioned before, anybody who's got a paper calendar for any given year, you know what? That calendar ends on December 31st every year, and the world is still here. That's how I look at the Mayan calendar. It's the same thing. They have a cycle of 394 years, which is 144,000 days, and that's when the cycle ends, and then a new cycle begins. So it's no different than them changing calendars as you would a paper calendar. Now, some people think that the Mayans predicted or had a prophecy of Doomsday on December 21st, 2012. You know what? According to this fact sheet, that's a hoax. It's a modern hoax. They did not make any such predictions. In fact, I seem to remember reading a news article a couple months ago about, I guess there are some Mayan descendants, and they're rather miffed because people are talking about how the Mayans predicted the end of the world, and they didn't. By the way, I forgot to mention that this PDF will be on the website. If you go to the show notes, I'll have a link in there that will go directly to the PDF because I think it's interesting that you see this stuff, because there's a lot more than I've heard of this stuff, but I didn't know they were all due this year. And seeing how we have less than 2 weeks for the rest of the year, I think it's highly unlikely that any of these are going to happen. Not that I expected that, but nonetheless, I think we need to address it. And the reason I think we need to address it, I will get in as soon as I'm done covering this PDF. Now, the next one is planet Nibiru. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it is, there's no planet. It's supposed to be a planet that's floating out there. It's on its way here, which is part of the next myth, the rogue planet headed for Earth. Apparently, for the past decade or so, there's been a rumor or reports of a rogue object. Some people call it Planet X. Some people call it Planet Nibiru. There's a comet. There's a couple other names it goes by. And the supposition is that it's going to collide with the Earth in December of 2012. They're absolutely not true. This, quite honestly, this is one of those, I don't know how my son picked this up, but this is one of those myths that my oldest son has picked up on, and I don't know where he's hearing from. Clearly, he's hearing it from school, but I don't know, I guess at recess or something they're talking about it. But he is worried about this Planet X or some other name. I don't remember what he was calling it, but I keep trying to tell him that it's not going to happen, because if it was out there, we would know about it. We would. There's no way you could keep this quiet. There are too many amateur astronomers, and these are the guys who typically pick up all the near-Earth asteroids and other bodies, astronomical bodies that are moving close to us. These are the guys that pick them up, and it gets out there, and it's not going to be held a secret. It's not like the movie Armageddon where they tamp down all of it. No, it'll be out there way too much on the internet and stuff. So it's going to be known, and even if they could try to put a lid on it, there'd be a lot of people who are like, "Oh no, we're gonna make sure this word gets out because people need to know it." So we would know if there's something coming this way, and there isn't. There'd be all sorts of gravity distortions on alignments, not alignments, but the orbits of planets and other things, and it's just not there. This even goes beyond mentioning the fact that if there was a planet like this that was headed towards Earth, you'd be able to see it. It'd be so big in the sky and so close that the sun would be shining off of it. You couldn't hide that. Everybody would know. And there is no object out there. So this is definitely not one of those things that's going to happen. One of the things that I kind of got hoodwinked on, because the site that I was looking at made it seem so plausible, was a big, huge planetary alignment this month. And I didn't really think much of it because they happen from time to time, and I kind of scheduled it to check out later, and I forgot about it. But it popped up in this fact sheet. It's another myth. There are no planetary alignments for December 2012. There's an approximate lining up of the sun and the Earth in the center of the galaxy later this month, but apparently that happens every year. So there are no planetary alignments, and even if there were, the gravitational pull does not amount to much at all. I mean, it's hardly It's negligible is what it is. So that's, not only is it not happening, even if it did, so what? The next event here listed is pole shift. Reading from this, it says there's nothing strange this year about either the magnetic poles or the rotational poles of the Earth. The magnetic polarity changes every million years or so, but that is not happening now, and it probably takes thousands of years when it does happen. A sudden change in the rotational axis has never happened, and it is not possible. If there were any changes in the Earth's rotation, it would be instantly apparent by failure of our GPS systems. I don't know if I agree 100% with the science in this statement. We do know that poles have shifted in the past. We do have evidence of animals like woolly mammoths being flash frozen while they were eating. We do know that stuff like this has happened before, and there has been recently changes with the magnetic alignment, how much declination off from north or true north things are. I know of some airports in Florida that have had to shut down to realign the IFS, I think it is, or maybe it's VFS. It's the equipment that planes use to line up with runways, because the degrees off has changed so much they needed to realign. Does that mean there's a pole shift coming? I don't know. I don't think so. It's been happening for years now. It's probably a natural cycle, but I don't think we have any clear evidence of how fast pole shifts occur. They could happen quickly, or they could happen over 1,000 years. Not really sure on that. However, is it likely to happen? No, not very likely to happen. Another point on this fact sheet is increasing disasters. This states our planet is behaving normally in 2012, although we see more and more news stories about natural disasters. There has been no increase in earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. There has been an increase in extreme weather, including both droughts and floods, which are particularly attributable to global warming, but this has nothing to do with the 2012 Doomsday. Again, I don't know if I agree with all the science in here, because we have seen an increase in earthquakes, especially, you could call them mega earthquakes, but large earthquakes, 7.0 and greater. We've had 8s, we've had a 9. So this is definitely something that's on the increase. The droughts and the floods, yes, are due to climate change. I don't necessarily know if it's a long-term global warming, but there is definite climate change going on. So I think we are seeing more natural disasters. We are seeing more technological disasters, but that's because technology advances. But none of that has anything to do with a Doomsday 2012 scenario. It's just how things are. Next on the list is solar outbursts. The sun's ongoing 11-year activity cycle is expected to peak in 2013, not 2012. True. Solar outbursts, flares, and CMEs can damage orbiting satellites but will not hurt us on the surface. The strength of the 2013 solar maximum is predicted to be lower than average, not higher. Again, I don't agree with some of the stuff that's in here. Flares will affect satellites and not us on the ground. If you're on the moon or in the space station, you could very well be affected by a solar flare. However, CMEs, yes, they cannot hurt you directly, but they can certainly take out the power grid, which will cause millions and millions of deaths, depending on how big it is and how widespread the power outage is. We've gone over this before in past podcasts and on the website, so we already know about this. And then the next thing here is bunker conspiracy. There are accusations of a massive government cover-up. You know what? We hear this. I've heard this for decades now. For whatever reason, there's always some government conspiracy, building secret bunkers to shelter away government entities and stuff. You know what? There may very well be. In fact, there probably is, because the continuity of government is a huge aspect of governmental life. That you want to be able to continue government, and many aspects you want government to continue, because government is the rule of law. So I'm okay with that. However, it's not some big cover-up. You can't have the government completely incompetent to do even the minor things such as pass decent laws on one hand, but yet be completely covert and be able to keep under wraps a massive cover-up for any sort of disaster or bunker or anything like that. The last three things on this sheet are scaring children, the end of the world, and cosmophobia. Cosmophobia is the fear of astronomy or things in space or something like that. I haven't heard anything about that. I don't think that's not necessarily a doomsday thing. The end of the world, where there's a sudden end of the world caused by something. There is no true end of the world necessarily, because the world has been around for billions of years and probably will continue to do so. However, the scaring of children, I think, is an important aspect. It isn't necessarily a doomsday scenario for 2012, but I think all these scenarios that people talk about all the time, I think they can affect children. As I've said, my son has a fear of this comet, this object, this planet that's heading this way, and he trusts me, he believes me, but for whatever reason, he is afraid of this, and I can't talk him out of it. And so we have to be very careful what we say around our kids. We have to make sure that we pick up on what they're being told at school, not necessarily by teachers, but by their friends, and where they get information, and have an open dialogue with your children to make sure that if they have issues that they can talk about it, and then maybe even do some research and try to prove to them why this isn't likely to happen. There's plenty of other scary things out there for them to worry about, everything from normal disasters, everyday emergencies, including schoolyard violence and shootings like we've seen very recently. And that brings up, I think, a very important aspect of preparedness in children, is that, yes, you should teach your children to be prepared and survival skills and stuff, but you also need to be very careful about how you go about it, how fast you push on them, because you don't want them to think that this is, or I should say that the disasters are normal, that they're going to happen. It's always been a very careful thing that I try to explain to my children, that it's just in case. For example, just the other night, actually 2 nights ago, this past weekend, we went over our fire plan again. The kids are young enough that we probably don't do it often enough because they don't remember. They don't remember the last time you talked about it. So I was going over it, and my youngest, who's 6 years old, we talked about the school shooting, and if they had any questions about that and stuff. And then we started talking about the fire safety and the fire drills and the fire escape plan and stuff. And my youngest, I don't think he understands what shootings are. I don't think he understands what happened there, because he wasn't really affected by that. But when we started talking about fire and having to escape from fire, he got very upset with it. And I didn't expect that. I expected him to be upset with the school shootings, not with the fire escape plan. So you never know what kids are going to latch onto. You never know how they're perceiving things. Everybody thinks differently. A lot of people think pretty much the same, but every once in a while, people think differently, and children absolutely think differently because they're still processing all this information. They get information from everything, like commercials. At some point they believe commercials because they don't know not to. They don't know it's just marketing, and so you need to be careful with children. So why am I talking about Doomsday 2012 myths and fact sheets? Because I've tried to talk about this in the past in the way of saying, you know what, this is not what you need to be concerned with. Not that big things can't happen, and not that you shouldn't be prepared for them, but don't get distracted. The fact that, somebody says some Mayans from hundreds of years ago had some inside knowledge about what was going to happen on a particular day this month, I don't know, that doesn't seem very believable to me, because then you would have to also accept the notion that they got this information from someplace. They were clairvoyant, they had technology, talked to aliens, something, and nobody could ever really point out any feasible explanation for this. So I don't want to dwell on the Mayans, but the point is that in the decades that I've been interested in preparedness, I have seen a lot of this stuff come and go. We've got biblical prophecy. We've got the Nostradamus prophecies. We had Y2K. We have all these things that come up, and nothing has come of it. We've had all sorts of scares and stuff. And this is what I said before. Most big things never happen. There's an article, I think I covered it in one of the podcasts, but there's an article in the Prepper News Watch about how most major prophecies or most major predictions for big disaster type events to happen, they hardly ever do. And that's a good thing, because you can then take confidence in that you don't have to rush. You're not behind the curve. You don't have to say, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. I have to rush. I have to go into debt. I have to spend money on my credit cards to be prepared. No, don't do it, because 5 years from now, you're going to still be paying off that debt, and you're going to be like, well, gee, nothing happened. I feel like a fool. And that's not the way to do it. You need to have a plan. You need to make sure you work that plan. You need to work that plan into your budget, because chances are, again, major or minor, it doesn't matter, but the chances are nothing's going to happen. Something can happen, which is why we want to be prepared. But you don't have to fret and stress out and go into debt to try to be prepared. Do it small scale first, and then ramp it up as you can. And when it comes to your children aren't going to see you stressed out and all beaten down and weary from trying to get prepared, because, when they see you busting your butt trying to get this stuff done, trying to be prepared, yes, honey, I'm trying to get prepared. I can't play Barbies with you today or Legos or whatever it is because I have to get prepared. You know what? You may think that's a plausible excuse and they understand, but they may not understand. They may interpret it as, oh my gosh, something bad's going to happen soon and daddy's trying to get ready for it or mommy's trying to get ready for it. I don't understand, but apparently they're really worried, so I need to be worried too. And that can manifest itself in so many different things that you need to be careful. Well, we've reached the point where it's time for me to sign off, and I want to do so by wishing you a Merry Christmas. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, then please have a happy holiday. I wish you all a very great and happy New Year. I will try to put out another podcast next week, but if I don't, then I will see you in the new year. So until then, enjoy life, enjoy the time with your family, and be safe.